Everything's fine.
All right. All right, everyone. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of Fearless. Today, we have my good friend, Tarl Yarber. Tarl is the owner of Fixated Real Estate. Now, Tarl, it's my understanding that you've done, like 500 transactions, or you've been involved in 500 transactions?
It's more like it's 600 now. Like
600.
Yeah. So last month we added
500 was last month.
Yeah. I wish it was that case, but no. And you're talking over the course since most of my hardcore career has been since 2011.
Sure.
And even though I started back in 2005, I didn't do a lot of transactions between 2005 and 2011. The vast majority of them 2011 to now.
Awesome. And you're also the proud owner and creator and organizer of the P&W Big Badass Real Estate Wealth Expo, which is now going to be the third year. And it's my understanding it's taking place April 26th and 27th, correct?
That's correct. April 26th, 27th in downtown Seattle at the brand new Hyatt Regency. It's the largest real estate expo and conference in the Pacific Northwest for real estate investors and real estate professionals. And that means realtors and brokers and all that great stuff.
Wow. Well, I'm so excited to dive deeper into that. And hey, guys, very important for me to have Tarl on the show. Tarl's 34, has accomplished some amazing things in his short life. And I know that dealing with fear has been a big part of that. So Tarl, I'd love to talk to you about how do you, or better put, what is your relationship with fear that allows you to utilize that as a positive force rather than something that you have to run from or hide from?
That's a good question. So I actually want to reframe it a little bit, because one of the reasons why I like what you're doing here, Jeremy, has a lot to do with the word fear and the fact of being fearless. And I think that most people that either start a business or start something new, or maybe quit their job and go full time in something that's like commission only, such as real estate, or something where they're like making a decision that has the chances of either making their life much better or destroying it. Right? So you don't know which one it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people that watch this stuff and are on Facebook and look at these things, they're typically, ideally in real estate, right? And they're commission only or an investor, and they all have experienced some sort of fear at some point. We all have our own story. For me, it's a little bit different. I've seemed to have a lifestyle since when I was younger to constantly put myself in extreme, fearful situations. That the benefit of doing that is it really, looking back over my life, has made me very much more mentally tough due to that. But it wasn't easy. And so I just want to tell a quick story about how I got started in
please do,
if that's fine. When I was 20 years old, I got introduced to real estate investing. I was full-time in college. And I was going through Air Force ROTC. I wanted to become an Air Force officer only because I didn't know what else I wanted to do. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do that until I figure it out. I know I wanted to do business. But throughout that, I was reading books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki stuff, and I was obsessed with him. So he was doing he was speaking at a seminar in LA.
Right.
And so I drive down there to do that. And I lived in Sacramento at the time. And the short of it was that it was a sell-a-thon. So a lot of people were selling seminars, right?
Sure.
So I bought one on how to wholesale properties, which was called how to turn $10 into $10,000 in 30 days or less.
Wow.
Which is like 1,000 times more than $10, right? So it's amazing. And so I bought it for $900, and it wasn't a seminar. It was just booklets and CDs. That's it.
Wow.
And I had to do it because I didn't have $900, and I just bought another seminar for $1,500, like just a second ago, like earlier. And I put it all on an American Express charge card, which I had to pay off in 30 days. And I had maybe $300-400 in my bank account. And so I was freaking out. And so I had to make it work, or else I was going to go in collections. And to me, 20 years old, never been in debt, thinking that $2,500 going to collections, I'm going to go bankrupt. I'm going to be screwed, right? So it was a huge fear thing for me at that moment.
Yeah.
But that's not the real story. The real story has more to do with when I then alienated most of my family, meaning like they didn't agree with me doing the real estate stuff. I dropped out of college completely. I was able to get out of the Air Force ROTC stuff. And I quit my job at the time. I was full-time at Sears too. And I quit my job. So I had no income. And I'm going to go try to do this real estate thing. And the only way it was going to work is if I would knock on doors. And because part of the little seminar, they didn't tell you this part, that if you wanted to go talk to sellers, you needed to direct market. And if you're going to direct market, you had to have money to send mailers. I didn't have any of that stuff. So they said, if you don't have money, you got to go knock on doors.
Sure. I
was introverted, right? I'm a professional extrovert. My natural state is introvert, and terrified of bothering people. So 20 years old, I had a Sears button down, cheap dress shirt, nothing like the stuff that you wear, Jeremy. And I had my dad's old slacks, and I had my dad's old shoes. And I had a 91 Mazda MX-3 that was salvaged. That was completely, the entire interior was covered in mold when I got it. And I had to like bleach the whole thing because it was disgusting, but it was a free car that I can grab because I didn't have anything else. The automatic window didn't work. You had to stick a nail into the automatic window thing and twist it in a certain way to get the window to roll down. Mm-hmm. And it's 120 degrees in Sacramento in the summer, right? So, and I'm going to go to your house and knock on your door and try to get you to sell your house to me and say, I'm an investor, right? Sure. I have no money. So I would literally get lists from the courthouse and go drive these houses, knowing nothing. And I would go to try to knock on the door, but I wouldn't knock on the door. Instead, I would like get out of my car and walk by the house and then do a full lap around the block, being like, okay, I can do this. And then I'd go up again and then I wouldn't go knock on the door, and there's probably nobody freaking home. Right. And like, sure. And then I'd get back in my car and drive away.
Wow.
And then the next day I'd be like, I'm going to do it. And I'd show up and I'd get to the driveway, get all the way up to close to the door, and I'd turn around and walk away. I'd get back in my car. And I can remember one point after I did that, like the third time in a row, I started like just crying. And by then I had debt collectors calling me because I didn't make the payments. My family's just like, you're an idiot. And nobody around me understood what I was doing. And I burnt all my bridges and stuff. And I was just so pissed at myself and so terrified, like absolutely terrified, to just knock on a door. And it took a little while. And actually, luckily I had a friend that like said, I'll go with you one time. And he went with me and I knocked on my first door, and I was still terrified that I screwed it all up. Nobody even, the person that answered it was a tenant. Like they weren't even the owners of the house.
Right.
And I struggled with that for, a good 6 months before I got my first deal, like constantly,
6 months.
Yeah. And so it took a little bit. And, no, that's not true. It was 3 months. I got my first deal, which made me $5,000, kept me alive. 6 months. Yeah, a little bit.
Well, $5,000, you're probably like, okay, this works.
Well, and no, because I'm like, fuck, now I need to like I need to pay for food, gas, all this other stuff. So I got around. I was borrowing money from people, and then it took 6 months into it is when I finally got a big deal, and it made $100,000 on that deal. And so, and it was a big wholesale assignment. Jeez. And that's when, but even just throughout the whole situation, it was terror, pushing boundaries, things that I've never even thought about. I thought I was going to be, totally fine financially all the time. And so I could relate to people out there that ever knock on doors, right? And I was borrowing money. I was living off of other people. I was doing whatever I could to like make some cash so I can knock on doors and hopefully, wholesale a house and stuff and make some money. So
that's phenomenal. First of all, thanks for sharing that story. That's incredible. I think that probably gives people some backstory, some understanding of kind of how you've been able to get to where you are at such a young age, especially not having, wealthy parents to help you out, or a college degree in which you had connections and so on and so forth. You kind of just had to learn throughout the process. You're a classic entrepreneur, if you will. You mentioned a couple things here that I thought were pretty interesting that I'd like to explore further. Is the first one you said is, my friends and my family didn't understand what I was doing. The question I would have for you is, did you understand what you were doing?
Oh, that's a good question. Nobody ever asked me that before. So like, did I?
Meaning not necessarily like, did you understand the whole wholesale process, but did you understand where you were trying to get to, and that you're going to have to go through some effed up stuff in order to get there?
No. And looking back there's a good friend of mine, Brian Burke, who's a very successful commercial and multifamily investor. And one of the questions he gets asked, because he gets interviewed all the time, is like, hey, if you knew what you knew now back then, what would you do differently? And he's like, I wouldn't even be in this business, because if I knew all the stuff I had to go through to get where I am now, I would have never started.
Sure. Sure.
Like,
Sure.
and that's my favorite answer. But in my category, like, did I know? I didn't know I was going to go through any of that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I just grinded it out because I didn't see an
Right.
exit strategy. And
Well, I guess what I'm asking is what made you feel like you had to go through all that process? Because there's most certainly an easy route, right? I mean, you could have stayed at Sears. You could have gone somewhere else. I mean, you're clearly an intelligent guy. You could have done a plethora of things, but why did you choose to put yourself through that arduous process to come out to where you are now?
I have one very simple answer, and that was my motivating factor in a lot of my life without realizing it until now, when I could reflect and like really spend time on self-reflection. And my motivating factor was to not be broke, right? And be like and I didn't want to be how my rest of my family was, right? And I knew we struggled, I knew all that stuff, but I want you to understand those words specifically. My motivating factor was to not be broke.
Yeah.
It wasn't to be wealthy. And
Sure.
there's a big difference between the two. Very big difference that I've learned and taken me up to now, right? Of spending 14 years of my life trying to not be broke, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm, over the last 12 months, really figured out that's been my motivation, that now I'm like, no, I want to be wealthy. So and you know what? It actually changes the whole dynamic around me just by changing those words and how I see things versus living in fear of being broke. And and that pushed me so hard. And I also just didn't want to have a normal job. I didn't want to be in a cubicle. I didn't want to, be told what to do and when to do it. I've learned I've had one real like corporate job. And I found out from that, when I did that I was psychologically unemployable, because having a boss over me that I didn't respect, tell me what to do, didn't really work out too well. Which, so
I could understand that.
Yeah. So yeah, it was to not be broke. And then also, I burnt my bridges and tell everybody that I'm going to go do this, and then to come back and not do it. Right. And all of a sudden with my tail between my legs and say I failed. And I'll be the first to admit, I had a huge inferiority complex back in my early 20s and my teenage years and my early 20s, where I really, really, really cared what other people thought of me, like a lot. And so
yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to explore that further as well, because there's really two ways of looking at that. Did you have a inferiority complex in the instance that you thought you were less than, or from the standpoint of like, who I'm going to be is so much greater than who you see right now, so let me show you?
No, I wish it was that. That sounds way more positive. So it was a combination of like self-worth is one of it, but also, dude, I just lied. Like I would just straight up lie and tell people I was more successful than I really was and stuff.
Okay.
Because I didn't want people to think I was less than.
Gotcha.
And it actually took years until I was probably right around like 23, 24 when I really started like going through a lot of personal development to really do my best to break out of that, because I didn't like the person I was. And it was really like something that like it would be a knee-jerk reaction where it'd be like somebody tell me how I'm doing. I'm like, oh, I'm doing awesome, right? Like, if I was also got into financial services at that point too, and I started running brokerage, and I wanted people to think I was a baller, right? So I would act like a baller and dress like a baller and talk like a baller, even if I wasn't a baller, because I thought I had to have that persona out there, and I didn't like the person in the mirror every time I did that. And once I became true to myself, and that took some personal development, lots of books, lots of CDs, and like true, honest self-reflection, and being okay with like looking at all my scars and going like, dude, you don't got shit, and it's okay. Like, who do you got to prove that to?
Right.
And even today, I still struggle with it a little bit. And but it's more of now it's at the other positive side where I'm like, no, I'm still growing who I want to be.
Right.
But I don't care what you think anymore. That's
right. As much.
Yeah, as much. But I care about what my wife thinks about me.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. That's honestly the only person that I actually do care about.
And me a little bit.
Oh, definitely you. Right?
Well, I like what Gary Vee said. He's a little cocky son of a gun, but he says, I care what people say. I care about what my wife thinks and what my kids think, just not as much as what I think. Yeah. And I think that's healthy. I think that you should have a healthy respect and a healthy excitement and understanding, and a willingness to follow your own thoughts. Sometimes oftentimes, especially in our society and probably in every society, you have people who live their whole lives to please other people. And then they get to a point where they're, 50, 60, 70 years old, and they're like, I haven't shown the world who I really am. And honestly, bro, that's the number one thing I've been trying to do for me. And I'm still far from there, but I want to freely express myself and be the person that I am inside, be that person outside, always. The same person that you see on this vlog is the same person that you see in person.
That's a choice.
It's a choice.
That's a choice we consciously make to not show who we really are.
It is.
And it might be that we're afraid to show who we are to ourselves and be honest about it. And my life became a lot more freeing when I started just, being like, this is me, this is who I am.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Right. And like my wife and I love to travel a lot now, right? We do a lot of cool, fun experiences. It's more fun for me to go live the experience lifestyle than the material lifestyle. And
I love that about you, Tarl. And hey guys, for you that are watching that don't know Tarl, this guy isn't just talking about it. You traveled 105 days last year?
102. I wish
102. Who does that? That's insane. While still operating a very successful business. That's I'd like to move closer in that direction because I'm the same way. As you know, I love nice clothes, I love nice things, but I'm not necessarily driven by money per se. I'm more driven by accomplishment, achievement, and experiences. And I'm trying to structure my business, again, as you know, in a way that allows me to have more flexibility to do funner activities on a more consistent basis.
But nobody's ever to get there unless they can overcome themselves and overcome that fear, like going back full circle, overcoming the fear that's stopping. It could be that you're scared of what other people think. It could be that you're afraid that nobody's going to support you. It's going to be fear of failure. Like fear of failure motivates more people or stops more people than anything. Like it's the fear of failure.
Totally.
And it's how do you make that step? How do you commit? And it's crushed so many dreams, right?
It's crushed so many dreams. I feel like for me, and probably for you as well, is getting those fears. Like for instance, like we were having lunch the other day, was it last week? And we're talking about some things specific, which we don't necessarily need to dive into, but we're having some conversations and just putting those fears on the table. And then having somebody else that you respect and say, you're afraid of that? Really?
Yeah.
That's nothing to be afraid of. And then just that in an instant, you're like, oh yeah, that's not scary. I can overcome that.
Yeah.
But I feel like oftentimes we don't have enough trust or I guess willingness to just put it out there and say, here's what I'd really like to do. And I'm not doing it because I'm too scared. As simple as that is.
Yeah.
So Tarl, you said something else. You said that you struggled and you were unwilling and you were being defeated again and again and again by fear, by this. You were imagining the worst thing happening by walking up to the door and knocking on it and maybe them saying something terrible to you. But it took a friend. It took a friend to go with you. So the question I would have to ask is, why did that change the circumstance? Why all of a sudden, now that you had a good friend who wasn't necessarily going to do anything in this,
they're with me.
they're there with you. And so that I find that interesting.
So, and that support system, it's extremely rare to find somebody out there that's so insanely driven that they just can push through without anybody around them and not care whatsoever about legitimately and have any support in their life at all. Right. That's an extreme rarity. And actually, you might want to think about narcissist or something like that. Like they just don't care that to keep pushing through that. And sometimes you just either need that, either it's an accountability partner, coach, right? It can be a big thing. Or just that support of a friend that goes, hey, I got your back. I'm here. I'll help pick up the pieces, whether you win or lose, kind of a thing.
Right.
And having that little bit of okay, well, that's safety, almost like a safety net, but not
totally
that I can lean on. And that one person, Gabe, who just he was super supportive, and I can owe, even though there was no direct financial result of his help, I can guarantee you without a friend like that was just kind of stepped up and said, hey, I got your back, I'll go with you. And then would listen to me and hear all my fears.
Right.
Cause I'd express it to him.
Right.
And without that, I wouldn't be here right now because I would have given into those fears. And
That's why I brought this up, and I was going to ask you if you thought about that, because hearing your story now and having you articulate it in the way that you did, it really seemed like that gave you a moment to break through and say, hold on, I built this thing up to be something that's totally not.
yeah.
And from that, he gave you some strength, which you're able to push through and have some success. But you went from being broke to thinking and hoping that you were making the right decision. Everyone in your life that you probably cared about and trusted is telling you that you're making a terrible decision, to pushing through, crying about, that you can't just get through it, and then to making $100,000, which it sounds like pretty short span. I mean, that's like quantum leap improvement.
Yeah, big time.
but I do believe it's probably necessary. Like you can't just quit your job, go into debt, and get $100,000 payday without going through some very terrible stuff.
Dude,
like there are some laws in this universe.
Yeah, right, yeah. So, but it's also just like a lot of people. Like I know I am maybe stubbornness, maybe something, but even with what we do with the stuff today, like my team gets sometimes frustrated with me where once things calm down in our business and stuff and things are working pretty well, I'm like, let's do something new, right? Yeah. And of course I got to make it like, hey, let's just like, let's do one thing. Right? No, I'm like, no, let's make it like big. Let's go, right? And then it's and I tell everybody and I put it all online and I go, right? But it's and it creates more drama, more stress, more fear, more everything again. Yeah. And I'd like one normal calm year where I don't do something like that. And I probably live longer probably from lack of anxiety. So, but still the thing is when you put the chips on the line, then you're more apt to go take action and take care of it. But you get smarter with it. Like for us, we definitely don't put it all on red. We don't do that. And we're very conservative investors. But the things that where that fear comes in is that you still have those issues. We still have those issues in investment properties. We still have those issues. Our events business becomes an issue and stuff like that with the things that we push and challenge there. And then just all these, and then employees and overhead. And then, we get the bigger you get, the bigger target you get on your back and stuff too. So that creates different challenges. And, and then do you trust yourself to take it another level? Like we just went through a 3-year audit with labor and industries and stuff, for instance, here in Washington. That created its own set of fears, right? Just by itself. And then, so you get, regulatory agencies on you, but then at the same time, you can't like show weakness or fear or any kind of stuff as what you're doing in your normal business. So you continue doing that as normal. You care about the market, the market's shifting a little bit. Like, do you get scared? What do I do? That uncertainty. There's people that might be sitting on the fence to get into real estate, but they're like, I don't know about the market, right? Yeah. Or they're in real estate now and they're like, shit, I'm gonna lose a bunch of money because of the market.
Right.
But then again, there's people that are super stoked and excited about the market right now too, right? Why is that? That's a good question.
Yeah.
So it's all about your perspective and where you are.
All about perspective. I've had situations in where the night before I am stoked, super confident. I know exactly what I'm going to do. And I've definitely made a really good decision. In the morning, I wake up thinking, what did I just do? Right. It's just perspective and input versus output. Let's talk about the new thing, right? You mentioned that when things calm down, you tend to take on a big, new, shiny thing. In this case, it's the big, badass real estate expo. Why was it necessary? Well, first of all, what is it? And then second of all, why was it necessary for you to go so big?
Yeah, right. Because I'm big. No,
I'm huge.
I'm huge. It is an interesting story. I haven't told everybody the story about how it even got started and stuff like that. But the fears like that went into that. That was the last chaos in my life was going through that. But the very first year. But it's the Pacific Northwest Big Badass Real Estate Wealth Expo. It's the 3rd year we're doing it. We'll have about 750 to 850 attendees, depending on final count this year. The vast majority of them investors and real estate professionals. And we'll have 45. We actually counted it up. We have 45 presentations for the stage this year. We have 2 main stages. We have a huge cocktail party. It's the largest networking party for real estate in the Pacific Northwest. So it'll happen on the first night. We'll even have like a trail. We'll have like a treasure map for alcohol, right? So you can like in the exhibit area, because there'll be about 70 to 80 exhibit vendor booths too.
Wow.
You'll have treasure map, about 10 or 12 of those booths are going to have alcohol being served at their booth during the cocktail party for free. And you can go like find those booths and get free alcohol from them.
That's awesome.
And then we also have, we raised money for charity. Last year, we raised $120,000 for the Travis Foundation.
That was incredible. So last year, guys, I was there at the event, and I remember you telling me about it and telling me that you're going to be doing this. And I'm thinking, okay, that's interesting. I wonder, kind of how this is gonna work out. And I was mind blown when I was watching how easy and how willing everybody was to donate. So that's incredible.
Dude, I was terrified. So talk about another fear moment. Let's talk about fear. So I was terrified of that auction. And so we did a charity. For those of you guys that weren't there, we did a charity auction. Nobody knew we were doing the charity auction except
right. I forgot about that.
You didn't know. Nobody, I think I told you, but you might have been the only one. But nobody in the event knew, right? The speakers barely knew. My staff barely knew what was going on, right?
Really?
And I kept it a secret. So we had a VIP dinner that was going to happen that night, and nobody knew how to get into the VIP dinner. And I said, the only way to find out how to get into it, you have to show up at 10 a.m. on the Saturday morning session. And we shut all the booths down and got all 600 people in there. And then we then started presenting what the Travis Mills Foundation was. We started showing videos, and we wanted to raise only $30,000.
Yep,
I remember right before, like at 9:50, I needed to use the bathroom. And I don't know if you guys ever noticed, but when you're scared of something, like for some reason you got to pee, right?
Oh,
so
first thing.
The nervous pee, and you got to pee like 20 times, right?
Oh yeah.
And so first time
nothing comes out.
First time we ever went skydiving, my wife and I went skydiving, and we've gone like 9 times I think now. But the very first time we did it, my wife she'd go pee, and then she'd come back out 5 minutes later. I gotta pee again, and then we do it again. Like, and we're about to go, so I gotta pee again. I'm like, you literally went like 6 times just now, and you don't anymore. So
doesn't matter. I gotta go.
But I needed to be right. So like right before the auction, I started getting worried about that, and so I'd go pee, and then I come back out. I'm like, oh, I gotta go again. Anyway, stuff about that. But I was terrified about raising 30 grand. I didn't think I would. I'm like, I'm gonna go up there. Yeah. People are, I got Travis Mills Foundation came out here. I hired a professional auctioneer. I got all the speakers. Like, I got all the stuff that we're auctioning off, and I'm like, what if we only raise like 15 grand? I've been telling everybody we're raising at least 30. And I'm like, man, we're going to look like such losers, and we're going to fail this. And like, like, and I'm going through all of that. And then it wasn't until we got on stage and we started the auction, and we auctioned off our first speaker. And the first speaker, Nikolai Ray, who's actually coming back out this year. He's done over $1 billion in commercial real estate.
Just a little bit.
There's a little bit. So he didn't know what we were doing. He just, he decided that he was going to give away like 1 hour of a Zoom meeting or something like that.
Sure.
So he did like the smallest thing we were giving away. And that's why I was making him go first, because I'm like, let's get rid of this one first, because he's like, the hell, what a jerk. He's not going to like give a cool like auction prize to somebody.
Right.
So we go to auction him off, and he stops the whole auction. He's like, stop. He comes up, grabs the microphone, and say, I'm 10Xing this, right? And I'm going to do a full day, do this. I had no idea what this is about. I think this is amazing. And I'm going to donate $5,000 myself, right?
Wow.
And so,
and you had no idea that was going to happen.
No, because he didn't know it. He was just like, I didn't know what this was. This is amazing. I look like a jerk basically, and I'm going to up my whole thing. And he went for a few $1,000s, and then right off the bat, we already raised like $7 grand.
That's incredible.
And immediately, I We're doing this. I got 16 more things to give away here. So and we just raised almost 30% of it on the first one. So I'm like, so my fear went from like super terrified to immediate like got it. And then
I love that. I love how quickly that can change.
Yeah.
And how often sometimes, what's interesting about your story, and I think most people who are on a journey, right, going through living life as if it's an adventure, their own movie, if you will, is that you put yourself in a situation where you gotta go. It's like, no matter what, I'm in the airplane, I'm gonna jump. I really, really hope my parachute opens, right? So in this case, you're super scared. You're like, everything makes sense. I got him here. I have an awesome crowd. This should work, but there's still a huge chance that it could not and flop.
I think I want to touch you just because you just brought up the airplane thing again.
Yeah.
Skydiving. I think everybody should skydive one time. And
I think so too. I haven't been yet. We need to go.
Yeah. So and I want to explain why I think that's important, because I think it tells it tells people a lot about themselves on a few reasons. And it's not just because you want to go be a thrill seeker. It's the experience of doing something, one, you're scared of, and then two, you can't go back on once you're up, right? But imagine the psyche, what happens to somebody that jumps out of the plane and is still terrified of jumping out of the plane. And then they regret jumping out of the plane and they want to go back into the plane and they're worried about all that stuff the whole time. And they're like, but they're already out of the plane. You can't go back in, right? There's people that make these decisions to go say, I'm going in. And then they try to jump right back out.
Right.
And they say, I'm going to go, I'm going to do this. I changed my mind. Right. Yep. Or they go in and then they regret it and they go, I wish I can go back in now. Not because it's a bad decision or a bad thing. It's just because of fear. Right. And then they worry so much about, did I make the right choice? Why did I jump out? What's happening here? Like once you're committed, you're committed. Right. Committed. And you just go. You can change directions. Right. You can deal with what's going on, whatever. You can make, you already made the choice. You can't get back to the plane. Right. The worst thing that's going to happen is you die. but at the same time, you still can't go back in the plane. Sure. So you have to commit and do the best with what you got. And I think it's a great experience for people to just like psychologically go through that. And you don't have to do it again when you're done. Once you get on the ground, you'll be safe. That's fine. And then
no, that's totally true. I love that. There's this book or maybe a video series or maybe a speech I'll eventually do. But I have this concept called dying before death. Mm-hmm. And that, listen, we all came from someplace and we're all going someplace. You're going to die. It's inevitable. When and how and where.
Let's make a lot of money. I might be.
You can freeze yourself.
Modern science, like the way doctor stuff's going on. Yeah,
sure.
You can live forever.
Yeah, you can live forever. But death, if you can overcome the trick that your mind plays on you over the small stuff, maybe the beautiful girl that you want to go introduce yourself to, maybe the business prospect, like how different would people's lives be if they didn't listen to that voice? If they did the thing that their heart calls them to do, their lives would be so much different.
Amen. And there's a book. I don't like the entire book. I like half the book that speaks exactly what you just said. It's called The Dream Giver. Okay. And it's a fable. So the first half of it is just like a story, and it's about this kid named I can't remember, something who lives in the land of ordinary, who does it's this whole, everything's just ordinary. And then he has this dream, and he goes through this whole, and the dream is like that goal, that achievement. And it goes through this whole process of it and all the normal things that happens to people that when they go step through the wall of fear and they go step into the land of unfamiliar and they go do all this stuff. And it's an amazing, cool little story that is all, and the analogy of it all has to do with what you go through internally and even externally when you go achieve some big goal. But once you hit that goal, there's another one, and there's another, one. And it's a great little book. And so it's highly recommended. And I don't want to piggyback when you said about death is that we've all experienced death, both of us, I think, most of us. And I really believe why people are so scared of death is because when they get to that point where they're about to die or something is about to happen, they go, not yet, please not yet, because I didn't do all the things I was supposed to go do.
Right.
I didn't know this was going to happen so soon. Right. And they go, no, I still got more to do.
Yeah.
And that's what creates that fear, is that because they weren't really living the whole time, right? They were living in fear, or they were going to do it one day or someday. Well, someday never comes. So it's you can just end like that.
It can. And, with that, I believe that if you have a passion for something, if you have ideas, if you have a vision, I believe that wasn't necessarily yours. That I believe that the universe gave that to you and it's yours to do. And, I've taken my fair share of opportunities to talk to older people, specifically older men, and find out that it's not necessarily the things that they did that they now regret. It's all the things, all the good ideas, all the books they should have read, all the people that they should have made amends to. And it was fear. It was fear that stopped them from doing that thing that would most definitely have a positive outcome. But just because they were fearful of it, they've made the decision to run, hide, rather than tackling. But Tarl, thank you so much for being on the show. Just real quick, for those of you who don't know about the Expo, where can they go to get tickets, my man?
Oh yeah, we're still selling them. Go to www.pnwrealestateexpo.com. And you can get tickets there. Ticket prices always go up almost every week or every other week right now. So as we get closer to the event, they're going to get more expensive. So definitely go get them now while you can. Check out the entire speaker lineup. We got amazing people up there. We got Forbes Riley. She sold $2.5 billion worth of stuff on television. She knows how to sell stuff.
Wow.
We're going to be doing one of our keynotes. We got Brandon Turner from Bigger Pockets, which most people that are investing know who Brandon Turner is. And so every asset class of real estate is going to be there. But on top of that, it's also geared towards real estate agents. We're going to have some of the top real estate agents out there to be able to teach you how to sell, get listings, that kind of stuff too. So, and it's a huge networking event. So absolutely, guys, you got to get your tickets. I've been there for the past 2 years, and I'm definitely going to this year's as well. You got to get there. It's going to be a great time. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Jeramy Poole on Fearless for another great episode with Tarl Yarber. Thank you for tuning in.